Hola, hola mis amores y bienvenidos de nuevo a nuestra canal Everyday Español. I'm so glad you guys joined us today and joined mi comunidad to learn about the top 10 mistakes you're making while trying to learn Spanish. If you are on your Spanish language learning journey and you want to avoid these common mistakes, make sure you guys stay tuned, and don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to fix them. Before we dive into the top 10 mistakes, you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Download that Unacademy app so you never miss a Spanish lesson right at your fingertips. All right, so let's dive in to mistake number 1. The first common mistake is confusing ser y estar, because both of these verbs mean to be in English, but they are used differently. And I have made a video all about ser and estar, so if you want more explanation on this topic of this common mistake, make sure you guys check that out on my channel. But basically, ser is used for personality descriptors and things that are about somebody's being, their core. Whereas estar is used to describe your emotional conditions, your feelings, your locations. A lot of times people like to say permanent for ser and temporary conditions for estar. I don't love that explanation because there's a bunch of nuance between the two, but you do see that a lot. So that's kind of what it's saying when you do that. So let's look at a quick no, and then I'll show you how to correct it. If you said soy cansado, when trying to express that you're tired, you are expressing that like your whole being and your personality is like tired. And we are never like that. You are never just a tired being at all times at every single point of the day. So therefore, this is incorrect. You would use estoy cansado or estoy cansada. Another quick example, I said that you use estar or a form of estar when you're talking about how you feel and where you are, so your location. So this next one, I'm going to show you what a lot of people write and how it is incorrect and how to fix it. Ella es en la casa. Ella es en la casa. No. You would say, ella está en la casa. Common mistake number 2 is misusing gender in Spanish. Now, nouns all have a gender when it comes to Spanish, and actually most Romance languages all have gender to nouns and things. So this is something that is a very understandable mistake that us English speakers make because, for example, this pillow is masculine or feminine in Spanish. Our phones are masculine or feminine in Spanish, but in English, with that concept isn't even there. So it's a common mistake, but it is so important when you're learning Spanish. So for example, if you're trying to say the house is big and you said el casa es grande, we can't say that. Why? It should be la casa es grande, because casa, the house, is a feminine noun. So it needs to be la casa. It needs to all agree. Another one, if you're trying to say the problem is difficult and you say la problema es difícil, you cannot say that, okay? Because the word problema in itself is masculine, so you would say el problema es difícil. So again, the misgendering of nouns is a very common and understandable mistake if you are learning a Romance language, specifically Spanish, because us English speakers, that we don't have that. But being a master at knowing what gender an item is really going to help you bump up your proficiency level when you are learning Spanish. And if you are making these mistakes, that's okay. Now you are aware and you're going to be able to fix them. Mistake number 3 is incorrectly conjugating verbs. Now, that is okay as well when you are first learning, because again, like we learn things in our first language, we don't learn by conjugating things in our head. You're bound to make mistakes and conjugation errors. But once you feel like you've gotten the hang of some things, brush up and refine on those conjugation skills, because it is a big mistake that a lot of people make when learning Spanish. Let's look at a couple examples. If you said, tú tienes un perro, you would not say that because the subject is tú and you said tiene, which is the he, she form of the verb. You would rather say, tú tienes un perro. You have a dog. Tienes is the correct verb conjugation for tú. Another one, nosotros estudia en la escuela. Nosotros estudia. We have the subject as we, but we said estudia. It should be nosotros estudiamos en la escuela. Mistake number 4 is using direct translation from English to Spanish. And you're gonna find out that is like one of the biggest mistakes people do, is they start to think about word order and sentence structure and everything in English and then put it in Spanish without really taking Spanish and understanding it as face value. If somebody tells you this is how it's said, or this is the order, you gotta like take that and not, it's hard, but not let that English part of your brain influence that. So let's look at a couple examples. Word for word translations often sound really awkward in Spanish when you're trying to translate directly from English. Sometimes it kind of works, but a lot of times it leads to really awkwardness and confusion. Let's look at some examples. Tener divertido, to have fun. You think, okay, the verb tener, to have, and then divertido is fun, but that's not right. In Spanish, there's an own verb for to have fun, which is divertirse. Another one, if you say hace sentido, you're saying makes from the verb of hacer, and then sentido, sense. However, that's not how it's worded in Spanish. You use the verb of tener and then sentido. I have also made a video on these different expressions that a lot of times you're going to want to use English, but that in Spanish it uses a different verb like tener. I just made a video all about this. Make sure you check out that video if you're wanting to brush up on your skills and be like, okay, how can I train my brain to not use a form of ser or estar on these common phrases that actually use tener? So make sure you check out that video that I have on my page. Mistake number 5, using por y para incorrectly. Both of these words mean for, but they mean it differently. And you use it in different scenarios and situations. Por typically refers to periods of time, exchanges, or reasons, whereas para is used for goals, destination, purposes, the reason for accomplishing something. For example, if you said, gracias para su ayuda, you wouldn't say that, okay? Gracias por su ayuda. Remember, por, we're using it for a reason. The reason I am saying thank you is for your help. Another one, trabajo por ganar dinero. Trabajo para ganar dinero. I work for the purpose of earning money. All right, we're about halfway through these common mistakes. Let's brush up on some of the common mistakes I've already mentioned in the video with the Unacademy app. Let's go. Okay, I am Julia. I am Julia. Yo soy because that's who I am. Soy Julia. Okay, bien. All right, what's the image? It's a picture of a woman, and I'm gonna say mujer, bien. Soy mujer. Niño, little boy, mujer, woman, wonderful. Yo soy mujer. I am a woman. Correct the blanks. Mujer, drag and drop, pasaporte, passport, niño, little boy. Okay, translate this sentence. I am a girl. Soy chica. All right, back to the video where we're talking about common mistakes we make in Spanish. Number 6 being neglecting the subjunctive mood. I know, the subjunctive is something that always stresses people out. But ignoring it or neglecting it in general, saying, I'm gonna learn all of Spanish without using that, it's just not really possible. It is used all the time by native speakers, and you need to know how and when to use the subjunctive. The subjunctive is used to express hypotheticals, doubts, and wishes. So if you think about, I have a video as well on the channel all about the subjunctive, but I kind of like to use the acronym WEIRDO to remember when I use the subjunctive. The W for wishes and wants, the E for emotions, the I for impersonal expressions, the R for recommendations or requests, the D for doubts, and then the O for the phrase ojalá, which will always trigger the subjunctive. If you forget to use it, your sentence won't sound right. So let's look at a couple examples. Espero que tienes un buen día. Sounds weird. Maybe not to you, but to somebody that speaks Spanish and just native Spanish speakers, they're gonna be like, that sounds off. So what you should say instead is, espero que tengas un buen día. Another one, es posible que ella viene. Es posible que ella venga. It's possible that she will come. Mistake number siete, número siete, using the incorrect preposition when you're trying to form sentences in Spanish. Prepositions in Spanish don't always align with their English counterparts. Sometimes learners use the wrong one, which changes the meaning of the sentence. For example, if you're trying to say, I think about my friends, a lot of times Spanish learners would say, pienso sobre mis amigos. That sobre does mean about, but there is a certain phrase and structure to say think about in Spanish, and it is not that. You would say pienso en mis amigos. I think about my friends. Another one, if you're trying to say depends on the situation, you might say depende en la situación. But again, an incorrect preposition here, you would say depende de la situación. Número ocho, mistake number 8, ignoring word order in Spanish. Just because we word and order things in a certain way in English does not automatically mean that's how it is in Spanish. So ignoring word order really is going to let people know that this person is learning Spanish, and that's okay. But if you're trying to be on your journey of becoming fluent, you need to know the word order, especially with adjectives, because for the most part, the adjectives come after the noun, whereas in English, adjectives come before the noun. So it's a common mistake people make, but no more, no more. If you want to say, oh, a blue car, and you say un azul coche, like even for me, that just sounded weird to come out. Like it felt weird to put those words out. It should be el coche azul, the blue car. If you said una grande casa, a big house, that's the wrong word order. You would say una casa grande. Y mistake número 9, mispronouncing words in Spanish. For the most part, things in Spanish are pronounced exactly as they are written. The vowels always make their own sounds, so a, e, I, o, u, but there are a couple letters that make a different sound, and it's really not that hard. It's 3 of them, about 3, that make different sounds, and ignoring the pronunciation of those or struggling to pronounce those are really going to hinder you in your Spanish learning. For example, not rolling your R's, which it's okay. It took me a while to roll my R's too. But a big one, the double L's in Spanish, you don't pronounce them l, they make the y sound. That's a huge one that's mispronounced all the time, but is used so much in Spanish. Also, the H's are completely silent. You just don't pronounce them at all. They're there, but we don't say them. So these 3 tiny little letters, for the most part, are the only things that are different. Everything else is written and pronounced exactly how it is written. So for example, if you're taking the word to speak and you say hablar, they're immediately gonna know, that's not correct, because it starts with an H and you don't pronounce H's in Spanish. So instead of hablar, it would be hablar. The next one I mentioned, those double L's are always gonna make the y sound. So instead of saying me llamo, you would say me llamo. And finally, my friends, mistake number 10, número 10, is forgetting about the formality changes and how that can change the way you speak in Spanish. In Spanish, there are 2 ways to address people. Tú, the informal way with your friends, people you know really well, and then usted, which also is like saying you, but in a more formal way. So think about with your doctor, your teachers. Say the president comes over, you should be using usted. Your grandmother, you should be talking to her in a formal way, not the way you talk to your little friends. Learners often forget to use the form of usted in formal contexts. So if you're trying to say, sir, you work here? And you say, ¿Tú trabajas aquí, señor? It sounds off. Instead, you would say, ¿Usted trabaja aquí, señor? So say your professor walks in and you are using the tú form. Professor walks in and use the usted form, a more formal way to talk to them. That is correct. All right, you guys, those are the 10 most common mistakes that I frequently see with Spanish learners. Now you know what the common mistakes are, and you can proceed with how to fix those or be more conscious of these while you're learning Spanish. a lot of the different mistakes that I mentioned in this video, I have other videos made on my channel for them. So if there are any that you're particularly interested in, make sure you go back to my channel and go find those videos. You guys know what to do. Send this video to your friends so they can be a part of nuestra comunidad. Subscribe, like, share, and comment down below what more you want to see on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today on Everyday Español. Join me next time for more Spanish just like this. Adios.